So, how is Google really using your data? What's going on, everybody? David Feldman-Makrias back to you and glad to be with you. So, this video is actually spurred on by a meeting with a Google representative because Google reps, if you've talked to any of them, really harp on hey, if you're a local business or an e-com business or whatever, we need your data. We need your customer list, customer match, customer match, customer match. And as a business owner that represents other business owners, data is of the utmost importance. So, from certain business owners that I handle as clients, I often find the reluctance to want to share their customer data with anybody, let alone a Google platform. So, again, Google reps push this. They say it's going to make our accounts better. They say everything's going to be better with customer match and doing this and doing that. What does that even really mean, and how is Google going to use the data? So, all right, let's take a look. So this is a PDF that this Google Ads rep sent over. And for anybody that's experienced anything with Google reps, really the quality of your rep depends on how much you spend. So if you're spending $1,000 to $2,000 a month, you're probably not going to get that big a quality of a rep. If you're spending $50,000 to $80,000 a month, you might get a little bit better. And then usually $200,000 to $300,000, you're going to be in more of the better echelon, right? And just from there on up. So it's priority by spend, just like anything. This is the document that this person gave me. Google Data Processing and Protection Guide for Customer Match Externally Shareable. See, just like I'm skeptical of everything, like even just like that externally shareable part, that just makes me think, what isn't shareable? What about the data isn't shareable, Google? Right? It's our data. Again, trying to be a little more objective. So let's see here. Setting the scene. I'm not going to go through the whole PDF. I'm just kind of like snapshot little things here. Third-party cookies are going away. What does that mean for advertising and measurement? This is, a couple of years ago now. But this is document, I guess, holds to be true. She sent it to me just the other week. What is first-party data? How does first-party data help organization in a world without third-party cookies? So they're making the argument because third-party cookies are essentially being minimized, even though they haven't been totally gone through yet, they're being minimized. It's more reliance upon first-party data, which makes sense, right? You want to use your data to the best of the ability. How does the first-party data help my organization in a world without third-party cookies? Why should my organization prioritize future-proofing measurement now? What is the benefit of adopting this product? What is the use case for these products in post-third-party cookie landscape? Essentially, with AI, data is going to make your life easier. It's going to make your ad spend better. That's the theory. But again, I want to be on the advocacy of the customer, not the consumer. I should say that again. I want to be the advocacy for the business, right? So, is the data that we share with Google actually protected? Well, what Google says is yes. I got a little Gemini to dissect this PDF. So I asked, my clients are pretty concerned that Google is going to take the offline customer data and somehow use it for other advertisers in the same industry. Maybe not intentionally, but it essentially goes to Google's black box of data, even though it is anonymous, and then is given somehow to the rest of advertisers, like in Google's in-market data section, where you can't see actual people, but now there essentially is more data. How does that attachment debunk this? So the document addresses your client's concerns about their offline customer data being used. Data is only used for advertiser. Google explicitly states that the uploaded customer data is only used to build the audience lists for that same advertiser, which shares the first-party data and never used for any other advertiser. Okay. No building or enhancing profiles of Google's user use or sharing. Google further clarifies, we won't use the fact that Google user is a customer match audience to build or enhance their profile about that user. How do we know, though? How do we know? Seriously, how does anybody really know? So, okay, you know, um, let's take a car dealer example. Um, Ben Adams, my made up customer, is a customer in market. They essentially were our customer previously, and we don't know they're in market, right? So we give our data to Google, and now Google knows, oh, this anonymous customer who's tracked by these, following, customer signals and customer matching. Now that we have their customer match, we can associate, oh, this person is now this person. Okay. So Google knows Google knows that through the list, this person is now linked, right? Google knows that. So, I mean, this is nice. We won't use Google users as a customer match audience to build or enhance profiles about that user, but I don't understand how they block it, right? Or even if I did understand how they block it, how do we know? I guess we have to trust in Google. We have to trust that Google is going to do the right thing. But Google doesn't always do the right thing, right? They also like sell us ad real estate that they say it's going to convert and then doesn't. Or they don't provide the right education about their ad platform, so it just leaves advertisers guessing and trying and debunking different things. Or, they tend to have monopolistic features about them and giving them more data. What if this isn't a perfect system, right? That's where you start to kind of play games. So it says this means Google will not use the data to create general profiles that could be leveraged by other advertisers. How not? Right? I get encryption. I get hashed data saying it's irreversible, but Google knows the 2 points. It knows that person and then it knows that customer. Right? It knows the thing in the back end, which is a user basically doing the things, and then we're telling Google, hey, this is our person, so then Google builds that link. So we have to trust Google that that link that we just built is only to us and not to everybody else. I think, let's keep going. So again, Ben Adams, right? So we put in Ben Adams' actual hash information. Google creates a link between that user and the hashed information, thus creating a user profile, Ben Adams, but it's only available to us. It's not available to anybody else. So this says hashing for security and irreversibility. The document emphasizes the use of a secure hashing algorithm for the customer data. Hashing transforms the data into irreversible code, meaning it cannot be unencrypted, cannot revert back to clear text. This prevents Google or any other party from being able to read or reconstruct the original identifiable information. Even in the event of a data leak, no unhashed data is shared with Google. This security measure ensures how that raw identifiable customer data never enters a black box in a readable format that could be misused. So I guess it's the hashing for security that nobody really knows. It's just a hard thing to really understand. Because, Google uses hash files for security, and it's irreversible. Okay, fine. But how is that limited? How is that hash file or irreversibility limited to only our account, right? Why? That doesn't really answer my question of why that hash file or irreversible couldn't be put in an in-market segment that Google has, right? Because Google has in-market audiences that nobody can find any information about. So we can't necessarily confirm it. We have to trust. Still, I get the hashing, the security, the irreversibility. It all makes logical sense. I get it. And again, I'm not trying to debunk hashing or debunk Google's security. I'm sure they have robust security. Look at the size of the empire, right? But I don't know. I'm just skeptical. Because I want to believe this is true, but I want to believe that I should listen to my Google rep, double my Performance Max budget, and I'm going to get a heck of a lot more leads. But that just isn't the case. Let's see here. Deletion of unmatched and uploaded data. Hash data that does not match Google data is deleted. Furthermore, Google won't retain customer data files for any longer than necessary to create a customer match audience and will probably delete the data files. So that's saying if I upload 10,000 people, 10,000 Brian Adams, what did I say? Brian Adams? Ben Adams? Ben Adams customers to Google, it will essentially delete them if they cannot create that link to that user. Okay, so in summary, the document asserts that Google Customer Match product is designed to keep the uploaded first-party data isolated to the specific advertiser. Okay, so after thinking about this and reading about this, and I'll attach the document. I'll attach the document here. Oh, always wants to do this. I'll attach the document here in the description below. But essentially, what does this mean for us? Data is a necessary evil. It's a necessary evil. I think we need to do it. We need to at least explore it, A/B test it, and make sure it works right. We're not going to know. We're just not going to know if Google is manipulating the data and giving data to other customers or other clients. We can read all of this and we can believe it because of the legality, the scientific proof, or what have you. Yeah, warranted. But we don't really know for certain. But what I do know is if we don't at least try it, we might get left behind. And if we get left behind, then that is a worse outcome than Google actually giving the data away. Because the business has to evolve. So exploring with customer match on a controlled setting, I think would be wise. Maybe, here's some next steps. If you have a data pool of, let's say like a dealership, you have a data pool of, if you've been around for a while, especially sales, service, and parts, you probably have a data pool of tens of thousands of customers, right? Give Google a section of the data. Give Google a section of the data, right? Maybe it's the data that you want to leverage the most. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something you want to mine from a long time ago. Give Google a section of it. You don't have to give them the whole thing. Give them stuff that is cleaned and is correct, right? We can't just dump old data into Google. I mean, there's, for instance, for me, I have like a ton of emails. So my one email floating around there doesn't necessarily mean, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that I use that email and that I'm going to have that same link that Ben Adams, our pretend customer, did. So I think we need to give Google sections of the data and we need to test it in a controlled setting. Like when in doubt, test it out. You have to. That's gonna help a lot. That's gonna help a lot. So, and you don't have to use it across all campaigns. Use it for some campaigns. Use it for Performance Max in a controlled way. Use it for other search campaigns as an observational audience and see what works. We can't really trust Google. I don't. But they're still a necessary evil. I shouldn't say evil. They're a necessary advertising source at this time. They are. And it's really important to, be able to utilize the technology and leverage their capability as much as possible because it will benefit the business. Now, if you listen to Google reps all the time, that's not good either because their job is really just get you to spend more without necessarily increasing results. And they don't provide good support on this. But I would recommend testing uploading customer match lists and using first-party data because it does make inherent sense that Google's advanced artificial intelligence and machine learning technology, which should be some of the best because it does have the most centralized data and the most centralized learning mechanism, trust that it could work, right? Trust that it could work. Don't give all the beans right away, but give a section of it, whatever that means. So like in the car dealer instance, maybe if you have 30,000 records, maybe you start with 5,000 and see what your match rate is. And you do it for a one initiative. All right, I'm only going to look at previous SUV customers. So I'm going to take 5,000 SUV customers, upload it to Google, and apply it to all my SUV campaigns, and let's see what actually happens. Right? You don't want to give Google like the data that they can't work with, meaning, or that's going to be too hard to work with or more challenging, because you're probably not going to see results. But maybe you don't want to give it on your top selling vehicles, so maybe you have to give something a little more broad. Right? I wouldn't recommend giving old stale data either. It should be cleaned as much as possible, and it should be siphoned that way. Here's another way to do it too, if you want to explore customer match. You know, you can advertise on another medium like Facebook and generate leads. Okay? And those leads over time, you're going to get emails, right? So take those emails and plug them into Google. Because that's not essentially, it is your data, but it's not like mine data. It's not like your sales customer data. It's your potential customer data, right? So leverage that, because that might work too. The only thing with that is the idea of customer match or offline conversions is to provide a list that you knew the type of sale that you got. So I think we have to trust in the system to a degree. Not go blindly in, but we do have to trust in the system degree, set up checkpoints for how are we going to test it, what's the control, and then how are we going to know if it works, right? And that goes back to the principles and the basics, defining conversions the right way, isolating campaigns the right way, using target areas correctly, so on and so forth. So, my final thought, it's a necessary step. So even though we can't completely trust Google, nor should we do have to experiment with it. We really do, to see what happens. So that's my thought. David Feldman-Makrias. Curious what your thoughts are. Tell me I'm totally wrong. Tell me that I might have a point, or I don't know. Just let me know in the comments. Thanks so much, everybody.